Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back to the Amelie Moran podcast. This week, I'm going to do something a bit different and just be a little bit honest and vulnerable with you guys because it's been quite a big week this past week. A lot of big changes, a lot of big things have kind of done a 180. And I feel like navigating big changes when you're away from home is something that is really daunting to people, especially when you're making the big move or you're going traveling and you're away from your family and friends. So I just wanted to kind of channel how I'm dealing with these big changes into an episode for you guys and to try and bring a little bit of comfort so that people know you are not on your own. This week, I actually started a new job, which is kind of like dream job, kind of dream role. It's so exciting. And it's been a massive change for me. The company is actually based in the UK. So I'm working remotely currently, being in Melbourne. But they've been really amazing about it, to be honest. And yeah, I'm really excited. And it's been a massive change for me. To me, it feels like it's my first sort of big job, if that makes sense. I've typically worked in hospitality since I was about 16, so I don't really know too much outside of that. I'm really excited for this. It's in the creative industry, so it's also something that I thoroughly enjoy. But that has been a huge change. Sam also got a car, which is kind of insane. I can't believe it. But it's so exciting. We're going to be able to see so much more of Australia, have a bit more freedom, be a bit more independent. And I think we're both really looking forward to it. I think it's going to open up so much more of Australia to us, and we're going to have so much more access to certain things, because even though Melbourne is so lovely to be in and it is such a nice city, most of the gorgeous landscapes are outside of the city and they are away from everything. They don't really have public transport to get you there necessarily. So I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm extremely excited, to be honest. It was quite funny having to go down to the sort of, I guess, like the DVLA, where they change our licenses into international ones. It was quite strange. They make you sort of do like an eye test and just double check your license, make sure you haven't had any issues in the past or whatever. But I was getting really nervous about doing the eye test. I don't know why. I have nothing wrong with my eyes. I've actually got perfect vision. So I don't really know why I was so stressed about it, but I was absolutely terrified that I would mess up one of the letters or the numbers or whatever. And then they'd be like, no, you can't have your license. Like, this is not allowed. And I'd be like, fuck, I don't know what to do. I don't know why, but situations like that are so anxiety inducing to me. I get really stressed out about it, even though I know I actually can't fuck it up. Like, I can't go wrong with it. I know how to read. I know the alphabet. I know the numbers. I speak English. Like, I don't know why, but just for some reason, it just, freaked me out quite a bit. But it was all fine. Got my license and we're all good. But it is times like this where I feel like you have all these amazing changes happening in your life and really exciting things are going on, but you really miss your family and friends and you do want them to be there. Recently, I have been feeling really anxious, and I don't really know why. It could be like having a new job, it could be things have sort of changed a bit now. I don't really know why, but there's just been a lot of anxiety going on for me, and I feel like it's also mixed in a little bit with homesickness probably, which again, I don't know why, because I don't particularly feel very homesick. Like, I'm not sitting here sort of in fetal position like wishing I was home. I just feel like it comes in waves. You go through these periods of I really wish I was at home, or at least wish my family and friends could be here to see the things I'm seeing. But I don't necessarily wish I was going home. It's a very strange feeling, but that is what we're talking about today. So let's talk about the newness. Things like a new city, you might be traveling, going to new countries, a new car, a new job, new experiences everywhere. It all feels extremely thrilling and it is extremely exciting, but I feel like sometimes it can be a bit bittersweet. For example, the things that have happened recently in my life are so exciting and I feel so grateful for everything that's going on. But I do feel like there's also this kind of I wish that my family and my friends could be here to experience this with us, sort of thing, and not be on the other side of the world. Which again is kind of weird because I know that they want us to be having these experiences, and like I'm gonna phone them and tell them all about it. So it's not exactly like they're missing out on anything. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, but it just is this kind of strange feeling of no one from our support networks are like here to sort of support in a way. I don't really know. I also see a lot of TikToks, particularly for people moving to Australia. They always say things like when you're having one of those experiences that you wish you could share with your loved ones at home, but they're on the other side of the world, and it's all like sad music and stuff like that. But I really do relate to that. I really do get that. And I think if you're traveling, especially for a long time, I think you can definitely feel that. You really wish that the amazing things you're seeing, your family and your friends were also seeing, but that's just kind of how it is. There's not really much you can necessarily do about it. To me, in my head, it almost feels like this emotional tug of war. That's how I see it. You want to celebrate the wins, but sometimes you're feeling a bit pulled by the homesickness, and then sometimes they're pulling equally and you don't really know what to do. But it is just about finding that balance and learning how to sort of regulate when you feel this way. Because like I said, I haven't felt this like the whole time I've been here. I don't feel like I'm sitting here every day going, I wish I was at home. I feel really homesick, because I would have just gone home if I wasn't enjoying myself. But it can just come out of nowhere. You might be feeling really, really confident, and then suddenly you have this wave of, oh my gosh, I just want a hug from my best friend, or I want to hug my mum or my dad or one of my sisters. And it is a very, very strange feeling, and you don't know how to really process it, because in a way there isn't any form of closure. I feel like you can call them and text them and everything, but you're not physically seeing them. So it is this strange, how do I move out of this feeling whilst also sitting in the feeling and making sure I'm okay, but also not deterring from what I'm doing in the present and trying to celebrate everything. I feel like it's just this very, very strange cocktail of like different emotions, not knowing how to process it. But I promise we can get through this together. When my mum came to visit, it was so, so lovely. I'd not seen her in just under a year. So it was absolutely mental seeing her in person. For a year, I've only heard her on the phone or seen her on FaceTime. So that was kind of insane. But I was a bit upset, obviously, when she left. It had been so nice getting into our old routines and like catching up, showing her what I get up to in Melbourne. She got to go and explore things herself. And when she left, yeah, it was quite sad. But at the same time, it felt like that was a nice bit of closure in a way, because okay, I've seen you now, I can do my last stretch, and then I'll see you when I'm back home. And it is really difficult, because if you don't have that, then how do you sort of get out of this feeling? But I feel like the way to sort of get out of this feeling homesick is just to experience it, obviously, and to feel it and like make sure that you're okay, but also trying to embrace the present and what you're doing in this new place. Like if you're sitting in a hostel and you're in the middle of Thailand somewhere, you are allowed to feel homesick. Like that is completely fine. I think it is probably the most normal feeling. But I think you don't want that to deter you from having fun where you are. And it definitely can. I feel like homesickness and anxiety for me are very, very intertwined. And if I'm feeling anxious, I kind of just want to like retreat. Like I don't really want to be putting myself out there. I don't feel as confident. But once I've kind of moved out of that, after it passes, then I feel like back to my old self. I think it can be really hard though. You are doing things that are completely different to the people at home. And I think something I've realized that has been quite difficult is that I'm having all these new experiences, going to these new places. Whether people I know have been there before is kind of irrelevant, because it's my new experience and it's what I'm doing. And then you see everybody at home and you see that things haven't really changed. There's no new routines sort of coming out. Everything is pretty much the same. And I've definitely found that when speaking to friends, you just sort of, you don't want to come across as like, look how great all of this is, because everything is the same at home, and it's very, very strange. But I just see this as more of a wanting to go back to your normality sometimes. I don't necessarily see it as like you want to go home and you can't stand being where you are. I think it's more of a, I just want something if you and your mum have a cup of tea in the afternoon every day and you have your catch up, that might be what you're missing. I don't think it can always be, I need to go home and I hate this kind of thing. I've spoken about this a little bit on the podcast before, because I do think it's really important to separate homesickness and like actually wanting to go home. I think they can feel like very different things. And I also do really think it's a gut feeling. If you know that you don't want to be somewhere, whether it's a new country you're traveling to, or if you've moved somewhere new and actually you realize, I did not want to be here, that's very, very different to, I'm just kind of missing home and missing my normal routines. But everything passes, and I think you need to get through that phase to understand what you really want to do. I think also you want to make sure, like I've said, you're not focusing too much on it to the point where you can't even enjoy what is in front of you. Maintaining relationships around the globe can also be really, really difficult. For me, the best way that I keep in contact with my family is I'll just call them. I just sort of check in every few days, see what everyone's doing. I'll ask about the weekend, what they're doing next week, and just kind of like be clued up on things that are going on. And then it's the same for me. They'll just see what I'm doing, what I've been up to. And we've learned how to fit each other's calls into our schedules. I think that's a really important part of maintaining relationships. I think in Australia, in Melbourne, we're about 11 hours ahead of the UK. So it's essentially 12 hours. When it's their 7 a.m, it's our 7 p.m, and vice versa. Like, it is very, very opposite to what everyone's doing at home. But I've really found that the schedule that works for me is calling my parents or my friends when it's my evening and their morning. And particularly on weekends, I would say, because then no one has work, no one has school. You can sort of talk freely, you're not in a rush, and you can actually properly catch up. So I sort of reserve my weekend evenings sometimes to just making sure I'm calling everyone, catching up with them, making sure everyone's all good, and they're making sure I'm good. And I really come to cherish those times. I think it's really important. I think voice notes also can work really well. I think if you can get into that habit. I'm not a texter. Like, I do not really text any of my friends from home. The only time I'll text them is to kind of arrange a call, maybe. Most of the time I just call them out the blue, or they call me out the blue. But I don't really like texting because I'm the type that wants to have a full conversation with you. Like, I don't mind sitting here for 2 hours and having a full catch up. But that's just me. I know some people hate that and would dread doing that. So I feel like voice notes are a really good way to go. Or if you're really good at texting, just having a full on text conversation. I think that's completely fine. I feel like once you find the good balance that works for both of your schedules, I think it kind of becomes second nature. You sort of know, for example, I don't really call my best friend during the week because my evening time is her work time. Like, that's when she's getting up for work, going to work. So we're not going to have a proper catch up in that time. For some people that could work. Like, if you're on the way to work, you might want to call your friend. But for me, I'd rather we were like actually chilling, relaxing, having a proper catch up. So it is just about finding what works for you and making sure that you're not sort of spending forever waiting for these moments, because I definitely felt like in the beginning of moving to Australia, I sort of waited on the fact that people were going to be waking up in my evening time, and I would latch onto that to be able to talk to people. I wasn't feeling too, I guess, like social, or like I didn't put myself out there as much, I think, the first few months, because there was so much to kind of worry about in terms of finding a flat, making sure we could make rent, finding a job. So finding friends wasn't really my biggest priority, I guess. But I've definitely learned how to balance that sort of out, because I became quite consumed by trying to live on UK time in a way. Not live on it, but like be available for the UK time so that I could call people and talk to people, which I guess in the first few months is not really that bad. I mean, you don't have your support network. You've just made a big move. It's quite scary, but I just think it's not the healthiest way to sort of go about things. You really want to put yourself out there and focus on the present, not just constantly live at like home, basically. Another really important thing is that not every friendship is going to work out when you go away, whether traveling or moving abroad. And I think that's fine. I just feel like you have to accept it. Which I don't want that to sound harsh, but it just sort of happens. I don't think you need to take it personally. I think just some friendships you can't make it work. You just aren't putting in the effort mutually. Or maybe it is one-sided, but I don't think it's that big a deal in some way. I think you've got to focus on the friendships that are pulling through for you, and those friendships are going to be like solid gold. Like they're going to be the perfect friendships for you. And I think it shows who's really caring about your journey and making sure that you're staying in touch. I kind of see it as long distance relationships. I think they can work if you put in the effort. It's the same with friendships. And I don't want people to be worried about going traveling or moving somewhere new and worried that their friendships will weaken, or the reason your friendship ends is because you left. Like, I don't think that that is a reason for a friendship to die. I certainly haven't seen that. I think the people that I stay in contact with are my absolute closest people, and you sort of learn to like understand that and see who is that person that's going to be there for you, or that group of people that's going to be there for you. I just see a lot of girls on TikTok talking about how they're quite worried about leaving their partner or their friends and worrying that those relationships are going to go downhill. But in my opinion, I don't think the fact you're leaving should be a reason that they go downhill. I think if you're worried about your friendship becoming weaker or like not knowing where you stand with this person once you leave, I feel like that kind of shows that there's probably issues already and they were going to come out sooner or later. But anyway, sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I don't want people to take it personally, and you can't focus on it too much because you want to be out there having your own experiences, meeting loads of new people. And I think if you're constantly sitting, making sure that this one friendship is being maintained, you can kind of lose sight of that. I really, really believe that whatever is meant to be for you will be for you. And I think that applies to relationships and friendships regardless. Here are the things that I've learned though. You cannot spend so much time missing the people at home that you do not embrace the present. I think it just needs to be this balance where it's not becoming all consuming and you're not sitting there waiting because you haven't spoken to anyone else. I think that is just a case of you need to go out there and just completely embrace the chaos, as I always say. Just put yourself out there. I mean, you're never probably going to see a lot of these people again, so who cares? Just go and try and make friends anyway. I think there are really good groups on Facebook in Melbourne. I'm sure they have them all over Australia, in all the different cities, all the different towns. I'm sure you can go and find people. They do things like pub crawls, runs, like so many different activities. And I think they're a really good way to meet people. And I think you should try and focus on that. But I do understand, and I really do, I do get it when you first move or when you first go traveling and you're in your first country, in your hostel, slightly nervous. I do get that you're going to want to focus on the friendships at home because that's kind of all you've got at that point. So I have sympathy and I get it, but I'm just saying from my experience in hindsight, I don't want that to become all consuming for you and then you miss the boat and just don't speak to anyone in your new place or don't make any connections that you definitely could. And I feel like if you're a solo traveler or if you've moved by yourself, this is like the number one thing that you can fall into. So it's just something to be aware of. I think it's something to think about and you've just got to be confident. Just put yourself out there and just speak to people. Because trust me, people are so much nicer than you think when you're away. People want to help you. And also reminding yourself that you are not necessarily replacing your support network. You're just growing and finding a new one in the new place you're in. Now, I know this episode has been a bit soppy. It's been a little bit vulnerable. I don't usually talk about these sorts of things, but recently my anxiety has been up. I don't really know why. I think there's just with all the big changes that have been happening, but I've also just been feeling a bit homesick and I wanted to make sure that people know they're not alone. I know a lot of people will be coming over to Australia, for example, or going traveling because it's summer over here. I just wanted to make sure that people know it is very normal to feel homesick and it is very normal to also want to embrace everything you're seeing. I have also so much gratitude for my friends and my family who have supported me on this trip. It's been so difficult at times and also the absolute best thing I've ever done. And I can't believe it's almost a year since I left home. That is kind of insane. But I definitely could not have done it without the support of the people at home. And so it is a kind of a shout out to those people, I guess, but it is also about finding that balance with your new life and the new things that you're doing. And for all of those girls that are worried about anything that I've spoken about today, I hope that you can understand that the people that love you at home only want what's best for you, and they are going to support you no matter what. They want you to go out and make all these insane memories and go travel and go move somewhere else, because then they can hear all about it and they can't wait to hear all about it. You will definitely have the best adventure. Also, making sure that you know who the people are that support you, it gives you such a confidence boost, especially when you've moved somewhere new and you don't have an apartment and you don't have any money and you're freaking out about everything. You need to go and get bank cards, tax numbers, all the like boring admin stuff. For me, it was the biggest boost knowing that I could call on my family and friends and had people that could support me and make me feel so much better. I just wanted to say you are not alone. You have so much to celebrate, both in your life at home and also wherever you are in the world. If you're missing home, send this episode to someone you love. Let's keep all the connections. Let's everyone feel the love. I think it would be really, really sweet. Thank you for watching this week's episode. I'm sending you all lots of hugs. Make sure to subscribe and like the episode, and I will see you next week. Bye.